On with us, Austin. Thank you so much for being with us, sir.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, sir.
Yes, sir. I really do appreciate it. Go ahead and tell our audience that doesn't live in Northwest Arkansas where District 95 is.
Sure, no problem. I mean, it is Northwest Arkansas. It is Bella Vista, parts of Rogers, parts of Bentonville, and all of Pea Ridge. So it kind of cuts in and out of different areas in different towns up here in Northwest Arkansas.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So this was your freshman session. I'm sure you're glad to get that out of the way. Hey, but feel free to take as long or take as short as you want, and just kind of generally summarize what was your impression of the 2017 session.
Okay, sure. I'll say that I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun getting to know other leaders and other legislators from across the state. I think we did some good. I think we did some good in legislation, and I think we also did some good in maybe what we didn't do. It was very interesting to see the way policy came together in a number of different ways. Some of it I was a fan of, maybe some of it not so much. Certainly a learning experience. Probably the best example that I can give you on I liked part of the policy, but maybe I didn't like how it was done. We can talk about the veterans tax cut. So we exempted military retirement pay from income taxes for those that weren't following that story. I think that's a good thing. I think that's great for a number of reasons that you've probably heard other people talk about. So what I mean by maybe the way that it was done is perhaps some of the other things that were sprinkled into that bill, which I did not appreciate. So you just heard me say I think it's great that we're exempting military retirement pay, but I don't really have a problem saying publicly that I actually did not vote for it. Perfect example, we taxed digital downloads in that same bill. I hate that. I couldn't support that, so I voted against it. So that's just, an example of policy that we brought forth that I liked in part of what came with the veterans tax cut, but the way we did it right there I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned it. That was an awkward position right off of the bat that I feel like a lot of your colleagues agreed with you on that. And, some of them, they went ahead and voted for it, but, I mean, you voted against it because the policy that you agree with that you were being asked to support, but you also had a policy in there of tax increase. It wasn't just the digital downloads, but they were, they were raising taxes other places in that bill as well, if memory serves correct.
Sure. Yeah, that's correct. If I can remember, it ensured that candy and soft drinks were subject to the full state sales tax rate, and they're charged at the same reduced rate as groceries. I wasn't as opposed to that as I was the digital download part. I read through this thing and I saw an exemption created for public schools, for public textbooks used for public schools, and that's a good thing. I'm glad we're exempting that. But, immediately I thought, well, what about private schools? Or what are we saying? If you go to a private school, you don't deserve to be taxed, or you deserve to be taxed more if you go to a private school when you buy your books? Or what about just all other books or all other ebooks? Are we taxing all other types of reading and learning just because it's done via a download? So those types of things, and, some other legislators that actually had the same veterans tax cut bill that was introduced, and it just seemed like we were so anxious to pass that bill. And I wasn't particularly a fan of that. Yeah,
and I know there was they had a clean bill that just did because a lot of people thought the idea that military retirees living here, it's going to actually pay for itself easily, if not bring in more revenue for the jobs that they'll create with starting businesses and that sort of thing. And I would tend to agree with it.
Sure.
The problem is there just seemed to be, on this particular issue, no willingness on part of the leadership to accept any solution that required the cuts. We're only talking $13 million, I think, for the veterans, and we were told, well, we can't cut the size of government here or there to pay for this. We have to balance it out by getting more revenue somewhere else. That's kind of seems to be the philosophy there. We don't really want to shrink the size of government. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I did see some of that. I will say early on the conversation was, let's hold up on a lot of the conversations regarding taxes because we want to create this task force. And it was just interesting to me that some of the same folks that were saying hold up on anything regarding tax cuts because of the task force were often some of the ones pushing for and offering up tax increases. Now, with that being said, I am actually optimistic for the task force. The report is supposed to have proposals for tax cuts and job growth. That's the way it
maintenance of a free society.
Not really sure what the latter means.
Is a very difficult and complicated
growth,
thing.
but I am a fan for tax cuts, so therefore I can't help but be optimistic. Regardless of what we've seen in the past,
to put up with temporary evils
a lot of people
on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
But, I mean, here's why I'm optimistic about this.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
The first section. Currently, it seems to me it's like a giant
we lose freedom here. There's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine, and we want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us today, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. I kind of want to walk through this a little bit. I saw this tweeted in media reports early this morning. As a matter of fact, this is the first thing that I saw this morning was Governor Asa Hutchinson decided to go on PBS and have a little talk about health care. Now, this isn't the first time he's done this. I believe he went back during the session a couple of months ago. He went on MSNBC to talk about the proposals, whether or not we need to, fully repeal Obamacare and that sort of thing. And at the time, if you remember, what we said was, which I still think is true, is that Asa Hutchinson was to the left of Paul Ryan because he's coming at this as a perspective as an Arkansas governor. And from the perspective of if there's anything that gives us less money when it comes to the Medicaid program, the expansion under Obamacare, that would require us to admit we have limited resources, would then require for us to say able-to-work adults are not entitled to health care and scale the program back. Okay, because we understand that the government program for able-to-work adults actually disincentivizes work. Even though they're going to say, no, it's a work requirement, whatever. It's a part-time work requirement, and it's not. I mean, you still have the welfare cliff. But anyway, he's done this a few times where the governor actually goes out and undermines the conservative portion of the Republican Party, specifically with what's going on in Washington, D.C. Now, you and I both know that conservatism has a much harder time of succeeding, and it's an arguable point, but limited government and Washington, D.C. don't go together at all. And that's a big problem that we have right now. I mean, we've got Republicans who are undermining the Trump administration just because he doesn't represent the status quo. Now, I would submit to you that limited government down in Little Rock has a lot of problems as well because it's not embraced, it's avoided. People are embarrassed or they don't believe in it or whatever. The establishment runs from it, both in Little Rock and Washington, D.C. But I will say this. If we can go back a couple of months ago, right? We had the Republican plan to repeal and replace Obamacare, and initially the one that was backed by Paul Ryan did not get through, to the point where Donald Trump even, thought it was going to pass, and it didn't. And then they went back to the drawing board. And then finally the House got together and they passed something that was acceptable to, I believe, most of in the Freedom Caucus. And they actually got it through. And you know what that plan did? It ended federal funding for Medicaid expansion a couple of years out. I think in 2020 or maybe 2022. I can't remember. But it essentially would be a retraction, would be a shrinkage in the size of government concerning this idea that if you're an able-to-work adult, you're entitled for the rest of the society to pay more money in insurance premiums so you can have insurance for free. Now, I don't think that's right. I think there's many of you out there that don't think that's right, but that is not what our politicians believe. They believe that we should all have to pay higher insurance premiums so people who are able to work can choose not to work and get free stuff. And so the governor goes out on national television again. He goes out there yesterday, and it's all it's now on the it's not now on the internet, the YouTube video. And he sits down with PBS. Let me say that again. He sits down with PBS to talk about how the states, we got to have more flexibility, we got to have this, we got to have that. And what he's really saying is, please, United States Senate, will you please torpedo the parts of the conservative parts of the Republican plan that was passed out of the House? Will you gut it? Will you torpedo it so that we here down at the state level don't have to actually govern and end welfare programs when they are not for the truly needy, those who truly can't take care of themselves? That's really what he's saying here, is I don't really want to have to deal with this when we're going to actually, for the first time maybe in American history, actually watch a program go away because it was based on socialism, because it was based on forcing people to buy products. And you had to force them to buy the product because nobody was going to want it after it got so expensive. And we went along with it. So here it is. This is. Let's go ahead. We can go ahead and throw the. Well, let's just start the audio. So this is PBS. Governor Hutchinson is on PBS, and 1 second here. Joe, what's the name of the? I want to go ahead and start it, and I'll credit it in just a second. So here it is, Governor Hutchinson on PBS News.
As part of our ongoing look at what's at stake in healthcare for those closest to the problem, we're now joined by Asa Hutchinson, the Republican governor from Arkansas. Our viewers will recall that Arkansas was, of course, one of the states to expand under Obamacare. Governor Hutchinson, thank you for joining us. Now, you're in an interesting position. You have opposed the Affordable Care Act, but also you and your predecessor, as we just said, supported the expansion. And because of those things, we've seen uninsurance rates in your state be slashed in half under the Affordable Care Act.
First of all,
what do you think of the Affordable Care Act?
What an incredible introduction PBS is. That's PBS's Lisa Desjardins interviewing Asa. I think they pronounce it, though, Desjardins. I know. I'm sorry. That's what the other lady said before, Joe. I know it doesn't spell that. It's spelled weird. So, first of all, PBS, I mean, they are very liberal. But when it comes to a Republican state continuing Obama's signature domestic achievement, they are very quick to point it out. Now, would you blame them? They're very quick to point out that we have, under a Republican-led state and a Republican governor, that we continued it. Back it up a little bit. I want you to hear that again, because that is something that does not need to be lost on you here, considering the fact that the governor ran on a platform of being against Obamacare. He even in his campaign ads used that as a reason as to why Obama's raising all this money against me, and that's because I'm against Obamacare. He said that in his own campaign ads, the governor did. So, go ahead, Joe.
Oppose the Affordable Care Act, but also you and your predecessor, as we just said, supported the expansion. And because of those things, we've seen uninsurance rates in your state be slashed in half under the Affordable Care Act. What do you think of the Affordable Care Act right now? Does it need...
She says uninsurance rates. Uninsurance rates. That's a really... I've never actually heard that. Uninsurance rates. She's meaning the rate of people who have been uninsured has been slashed in half. Like that's some sort of huge accomplishment, when in reality, it's not hard to give away something for free. It is the easiest thing in the world. Government wants you to believe it's the biggest deal. It's the hardest thing to give away something for nothing. So hard, because, people don't want free stuff, and it's hard to get them to take the free stuff, the free health care. I posted this on Facebook yesterday. Caleb Taylor over at the ArkansasProject.com writing, so they want to talk about uninsured. Okay, let's talk about actual premiums. So while the uninsurance rate, let's just see the argument, was slashed in half, never mind that there's a difference between insurance and actual health care. But while the uninsured rate was slashed in half in Arkansas, and Hillary Clinton could come into Arkansas like she did and brag about that same statistic, by the way, premiums are up 128% since 2013 when the Democrats and a minority of Republicans enacted this. Health insurance premiums in Arkansas have increased by 128% since 2013, according to a report released this week by the Department of Health and Human Services. Let's put that into context. Nationally, health insurance premiums have, on average, merely doubled since 2013. From the report, quote, comparing the 2013 average premiums using the medical loss ratio data with the 2017 average premiums obtained by using CMS data, data shows average premiums were 105% higher in 2017 than in 2013, and that the median state premium increase was 108%. Moreover, 62% of states using healthcare.gov had 2017 average premiums double average premiums in 2013. Of course, way back in 2013, Caleb Taylor writes, Medicaid expansion was passed with the promise that it would help drive down premiums for Arkansans. With the release of this latest report by the federal government showing premiums in Arkansas have risen higher than premiums nationwide, it's clear this claim was false. Let me read that again. Quote, this claim was false. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out because, once again, as I said just a second ago, if you're going to give away something for free, all of us who are working, making ends meet, are going to have to pay more for it so you can give it away to other people. And that's exactly what this is. Otherwise, that might be known as a redistribution of wealth scheme, which is what Obama believed in. If you have a business, you didn't build that. That whole communist, socialist, Marxist philosophy, whatever you want to call it, was embodied in Obamacare. And you know why? It's just like Reagan said, if you want to implement socialism, get your foot in the door with health care, because who's going to argue against the noble cause? Back to this audio. Let's actually listen to the governor before we have to go to break. Go ahead, Joe.
Full repeal?
Well, we need to change what we have. It doesn't work completely. For example, we wanted to reform the Medicaid expansion in Arkansas with a simple work requirement, just like we have on the SNAP program. But under Obamacare, the previous administration would not give us that requirement. We needed to control the cost more.
That for a second.
We're
so
unable
if
to.
We're going to compare that with history, I mean, in order to sell Asa Hutchinson's continuation of Obamacare private option that he just changed the name and called it Arkansas Works, they were trying to get us to believe that we would get the work requirement under the Obama administration. I mean, I know they weren't as optimistic as they are now with Donald Trump in the White House. And in their defense, they did even say, well, we got to hope for another administration. Let's wait and see how the election turns out, but let's go ahead and continue the program instead of doing things like capping the enrollment, instead of doing things like, look, there were things that they could have done, like end the program entirely, which people say it's a big no-no, but I mean, we have finite resources, and it's ballooned out of control. And they've tried to raise all of our taxes because Asa didn't want to lead us out of Obamacare. If you want to know why they went after so much revenue, it's because he couldn't say no to the special interest, and he couldn't do the hard thing. And it would have been hard, and it would have been messy. But the people of Arkansas would have understood if you would have gone out there and said, look, we have no business doing this. We have no business participating in a redistribution of wealth scheme that the whole premise of it was that if you're alive, you owe the government tribute in the form of a health care policy. That would be the individual mandate. Real quick, a little bit more. Sorry.
Do that whenever it's mandatory that you cover everybody up to 138% of the federal poverty level. And so we're trying to concentrate limited resources in Arkansas. We don't have the flexibility we need under the current program. So, yes, I supported a change in it, and I applaud the House for starting the debate with passing
Listen to that. Starting the debate. Starting
replacement. But we need to obviously do more, and I'm looking for the Senate they're starting over. They're drafting it. I hope they listen to the governors to provide the flexibility that's needed.
Stop.
And I hope they take some ideas from Arkansas.
Carefully crafted language. And they're starting over in the Senate. He wants them to gut the cost shift to the states, the cost shift that should be there. Because, look, Obama had one philosophy that obviously the governor shares, that it is our responsibility to take care of people who are not truly needy and to be enslaved to one another when it comes to health care. That's Obama's philosophy, and folks, you got to be able to read between the lines here, but Ace is trying to preserve that philosophy. And then there's the other philosophy that's about free market, it's about personal responsibility, and it's about decreasing the role of government in what its effect is on our individual lives. The most personal thing is our own well-being and our own health care. And with freer markets and lower premiums, by not giving away free stuff to people who could be working to earn it themselves, you just have a lot more freedom all the way around. That's the other philosophy.
I'm over here reading the actual text from the interview.
Yeah.
And this is from Obama, or not from Obama, from Hutchinson. They're drafting it. I hope they listen to the governors to provide the flexibility that's needed. The flexibility, quote unquote, that's needed there is more money. Because right now we're constrained by the money that we don't have of our revenue problem, not our spending problem.
You know, they do want to try to make it. I mean, they want their work requirement, and they want to be able to, say, well, we'll cover this, but we won't cover that. And look, and I get all that, but the fundamental philosophy is still the same as Obama's, and that is we're all born into this world responsible for our neighbors' health care needs by law. And I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. And I think most people wouldn't agree with that. Or at least the people that are listening to the show wouldn't agree to it. Now, he also goes on to say, we hope that the Senate will listen to the governors and borrow some ideas from the state of Arkansas. Good grief. I certainly hope not, because everything they've ever said about the ideas coming out of Arkansas that are good have all been the opposite. They've all been bad ideas. All of their promises were lies. They were all lies. Speaking of that, I got a story about an attorney I want to tell you. I guess coming up this hour. Back in a minute.
Don't wait until it's too late to recover.
recover what belongs to you. At Triple R Recovery, service is our specialty. We offer recovery of ATVs, boats, vehicles, and personal possessions. If you are in need of our services and want back what is rightfully yours, give us a call for 24/7 assistance at 1-866-593-7457. That's 1-866-593-7457. Or email us at triplrrecovery@gmail.com.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works Obamacare private option, has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. You're listening to the intersection of conservative ideas and reality.
All right.
The Paul Harrell
Joe, play
program.
that. Welcome back. Just play that audio real quick, and then I want to get your comment, because you did make a good point. I kind of dismissed it, but go ahead.
Applaud the House for starting the debate with passing a repeal and a replacement, but we need to obviously do more, and I'm looking for the Senate they're starting over, they're drafting it. I hope they listen to the governors to provide the flexibility that's needed, and I hope they take some ideas from Arkansas as to some of the good things that we've done.
So that's Ace on PBS talking about the Obamacare replacement and repeal. Joe, you think flexibility means more money?
Yeah. Okay. So the reason why I think flexibility means more money, because he says in the actual, like what he said, is I hope they listen to the governors to provide the flexibility that's needed. He's not talking about other governors. He's talking about himself with the providing the flexibility, because he's already talked prior about how that the state has a revenue problem, not a spending problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We believe very much the opposite of that. So if there's a revenue problem, there's not a lot of flexibility with what you do with your extra money or with money that you have. So what do? You increase taxes, create more flexibility.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you're right. Like I said, I was dismissive at first because I know I know what they say flexibility really means, but considering the fact that he is trying to torpedo what the House did, and he's hoping the House bill is not the final solution because it ends a program. It decreases funding for a program, a welfare program, not for the truly needy, but for able-to-work adults. Not for the blind, the disabled. Matter of fact, we got people who are developmentally disabled that can't get care while we're paying for able-to-work adults. Over $100 million a month, a $2 billion a year program. It's insane. Great point, though. Flexibility means more money. Go ahead.
Anything regarding tax cuts, because of the task force, we're often some of the ones pushing for and offering up tax increases. Now, with that being said, I am actually optimistic for the task force. The report is supposed to have proposals for tax cuts and job growth. That's the way it reads, and I'm not really sure what the latter means as far as job growth, but I am a fan for tax cuts, so therefore I can't help but be optimistic, regardless of what we've seen in the past. And I know a lot of people have certain opinions, strong opinions about task force. I am one of those. In fact, I'm not going to say every time. A lot of times when I saw a task force, I voted against it. But, I mean, here's why I'm optimistic about this. This is actually a huge – you asked about my impressions of the first session. Currently, it seems to me it's like a giant bloodbath here for whoever can compete for the best exemptions for their interest group, as opposed to policy that serves the public as a whole. So what we're saying is, because it's such a giant bloodbath, let's set time in a specific group that's just going to focus on, hopefully, right, getting rid of all these classes of tax exemptions here and there for different groups so that we can broaden the base, and then let's aggressively and responsibly, hopefully, lower income taxes for everyone. And that sounds like a great idea to me, but I think the reason I brought that up originally, I was just saying that some folks that were saying hold up on any type of tax conversation because we have the task force, we're also saying, well, I'm going to offer up this tax increase here and this tax increase there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be consistent if that's what we're saying we're going to do to help out Arkansans.
We're talking with State Representative Austin McCullum from District 95 on that the task force, because I really hope that it is great, and I hope we get some real conservative solutions. But my fear is. Just specifically, like, without just generally not trusting task forces, which I have to admit that I do. But just on this specific issue, if the mentality is that we've got to find a way to, quote, cut taxes, but we will not address the idea that the government may not necessarily need the same level of revenue it has now, you know what I'm saying? Then really what we may just be doing is kind of just moving funds around and just be a shell game. That's my concern.
Yeah, and that's a fair concern, and I mean it's a concern for me as well, considering some of the stuff that I just watched happen. And I mean, I can't say I watched it happen. I am a part of it now, right? I have to be a team player and come up with solutions. But while it is a concern, the way it's being talked about is specifically, let's look at all of those exemptions. Let's look at wherever those groups are that are maybe benefiting more than others. And let's think about how to get rid of those exemptions and broaden the base. Yes, I hear you. It is a concern. We do need to think about cutting spending as well. That's got to be part of it. I hope to be one, and I know there are others that will be advocating for also cutting spending.
Need to get something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now, 870-275-9799.
We're listening. Well, you're listening to me. It's the Paul Harrell program, and you're listening to me listen to Asa Hutchinson on PBS talking about his solutions for Well, he's talking about his hopes and his dreams for the D.C. repeal and replace. And PBS, they rightfully point out that Arkansas, the reason they focus on Arkansas is because Arkansas is a Republican-led state that embraced Obamacare, and we don't want it to go away now because we have people who are addicted to a federal program. We have our leaders that are addicted to it. We have hospital administrators and insurance companies that are addicted to it. It's requiring more tax dollars because they keep trying to raise our taxes to pay for it because the population on the program has ballooned out of control. Yeah, that's a great point. And Arkansas is conspicuous. It's a way for the left to make their message, hear me on this, seem like it's moderate when it's really socialist, leftist, Marxist. Because Arkansas, people are going to be like, Arkansas, that's a conservative state because it's in the South. It really just goes to show you what a disservice we did to the whole country. Enabling the leftist media to craft these narratives to try to convince people that, maybe socialism's not so bad. Arkansas did it. Maybe it's not that bad. Arkansas participated in it. It's probably okay then. It's probably not as bad as those on the right say. Oh, little do you know. And they want to pick off the South states. I went on Eric Erickson's show out of Atlanta last year because there were rumblings that Georgia was trying to do the same thing. And I went on there and I just told Eric Erickson, I said, hey, man, you guys you got to do everything you can to stop this. And I told him what a disaster our program was. I haven't followed up on that, but I think I would have heard if Georgia would have done it. But they want to get these southern states on board, want to get them addicted to it, addicted to this. And it really is just it's like what Ronald Reagan said: the closest thing to eternal life is a government program on this side, is a government program. So we're going over this audio. I want to get through the rest of it. Try not to stop and start too much here, but I can't make any promises. Here's more from Governor Asa Hutchinson on PBS. Trying to hope that what the final solution for the repeal and replace of Obamacare is not what came out of the House. He is to the left of Paul Ryan on this.
Controlling cost, but also expanding health care coverage.
One of the items of flexibility that House Republicans would give you is the ability to waive out of some things like essential benefits or a cap on the costs for people who have pre-existing conditions. Are those things that you would want to waive out of?
Not necessarily, but we've got to be able to have the flexibility and options for the states. And for example, on the health care benefits, I think the state should be able to give more flexibility in terms of coverage. Not everybody wants every essential health benefit. They might want to have different options and a menu of options that suit their particular needs. Let's give the states the option to enhance coverage, to make sure there's health care options that are out there, but also the ability to control costs.
Stop for a second.
And
you got to have a menu for this, and you let people choose. You know what we're witnessing here? In all seriousness, this is what we're witnessing. We're not even starting there. You remember when welfare and food stamps used to be a block of government cheese and a bag of beans or a bag of rice? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it was, and now it's something completely different. It's normalized, and you can buy candy bars with it. You can do whatever you want with it. With healthcare, you would think there would have been some form of some standard to that, like some I don't know, repetition of pattern where you start. Okay, well, you're an able to work adult, so we're not going to give you this comprehensive coverage in the first place. We're not going to give you all of that. We'll help if you get something that's completely debilitating. Guess what? That already exists. And so we're witnessing the I don't know, the candy and soda of so maybe it did start that way. Matter of fact, it did. Yeah. So we're witnessing the what's the card called now? It's not food stamps. You can't have food stamps. You got to have a card. So it's a credit card basically, or it looks like a credit card. A SNAP. Yes, it's a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We're watching the snapification of our healthcare system. And Arkansas just rolls over because insurance companies and hospitals and bureaucrats want them to, because we got to have the money. Because there are completely different philosophies at stake here. And one has to do with trying to convince the people who are against this, like I am, that, you know, you're just heartless if you don't want to continue to do. If you don't want to pay more health insurance premiums in order to do this, then it's your fault. All right, Joe, go ahead. Continue with this, Governor Hutchinson.
To look at a menu of options. We take two options right now in terms of reform. We want to be able to reduce it from 138% of the federal poverty level down to the poverty level, so we can concentrate our limited resources on those that need it the most, shift more to the exchange where they'll have support and coverage, but it'll be a cost-saving measure both for the state and the federal government. These are the types of reforms and flexibility that make sense. The work requirement is important to encourage people to have the training they need to move up the employment ladder, to make more money. But
notice his language there, to encourage people. I don't know if he's doing that because he's on PBS. Maybe if he were on a different, but, you know, maybe the word require them. But it's not really a requirement, right? It's still not going to be a requirement, folks. I don't know how to tell you this. We can say it's a work requirement, but it's really a part-time work requirement. You can say you're going to have this amount of this amount of hours, but you have to have this amount of hours over a 3-month period. It's 80 hours of volunteering or 80 hours of training or 80 hours of work a month, but after 3 months you get kicked off the program. So my question still is, okay, if you don't get your 80 hours in month 1 and you don't get your 80 hours in month 2, but you do get your 80 hours in month 3, or you do get your 80 hours spread out over 3 months, do you get to stay on the program? And I bet you the answer is yes. And you get to this point where we got to start asking ourselves what the definition of lying is. What the definition of misleading is. Misinformation, carefully crafted language. I mean, like, what is it? And the only thing I can go to is, like, what were you taught? What were you taught as a kid of what's acceptable and what's not? Let me give you a story. This is good here. Listen. The story of the lawyer. Have you heard about this? The lawyer with 12 kids. There's a lawyer who had 12 kids and a wife. And they all needed to move because his rental agreement was terminated by the owner who wanted to reoccupy his home. But the lawyer was having some difficulty finding a new house because when he told anybody he was looking at a house that he had 12 kids, no one would rent the home to him because they felt that the children would destroy the place. Which, that's a whole nother discrimination lawsuit. You'd think the lawyer would lawyer up. But there, you got 12 kids. That scares us away. We don't want to rent to you. Okay. So he couldn't say he had no children because he couldn't lie. We all know lawyers cannot and do not lie, right? So he sent his wife for a walk to the cemetery with 11 of their kids. He took the remaining one child with him to see rental homes with a real estate agent, and they found one that they loved, and the price was right. The agent asked, "How many children do you have?" And the lawyer answered, 12. And the agent asked, "Where are the others?" And the lawyer said, with his best courtroom sad look, and answered, "They're in the cemetery with their mother." The moral of that story is it's not necessary to lie. One only has to choose the right words. And don't forget that most politicians are unfortunately lawyers. You know who else is a lawyer? Asa Hutchinson. So here's a question. Were most of you out there raised to believe what I just described to you was wrong? were most of you out there raised to believe that that was an act of deceit, that was in fact a lie, that was dishonesty, and that was wrong? That's my question for today. Right? It's a funny story. Yeah, it really is. And here's a slight difference of the story, because some of you might be able to say, yeah, that is wrong, but this guy needed to find a home for his kids so his kids wouldn't be homeless. Okay, all right. Yeah, that does add a little bit more of a twist, but if you compare that to politicians aren't desperate, unless you're Jake Files. Politicians aren't desperate, to find their kids a home. They're lying. They're misleading by choosing their carefully crafted words so that they can upgrade to, from a 2,300 square foot house to a 10,000 square foot house, or a government job after they leave office. That's what they're angling for. The question is that wrong? They're with the cemetery. They're at the cemetery with their mother. That's where my kids are. So he didn't lie, but he did. And that's my question today. Most of us, I think most Arkansas voters, most people who are trying to make an honest living are out there saying, yeah, that's wrong. Or the same thing with like Representative James Sturch when he gets up and he leaves, thinking you're never going to find, once you don't know, you're not going to hurt him. Little do they know Conduit for Action made that video and wrote that article. It's just a question. Let's go back to Asa Hutchinson.
At the same time, have some support for health care. These are the reforms we want to put into place.
Governor, House Republicans would offer you more flexibility, as you say, but they would also cut some of the Medicaid funding you get from the government.
All right, stop
and
right
it
there.
Seems they are
Medicaid funding. Stop right there. Back up a little bit. Remember what Joe said. Joe, you were saying that you think flexibility really means more money. That's what he wants, because right now the House plan would end the money coming to Arkansas eventually to fund for this new program that's exploded and requiring ASA to raise your tire taxes, requiring ASA to try to raise your digital download tax, requiring ASA to go after your internet taxes. I mean, all of that is a result. He wants to pay for this program, and now that the feds might cut the money. Now that the feds might say, okay, you can keep the program, but it's not going to be 90-10 split. It's going to be traditional 70-30. We can't even afford 10% of this program without going and trying to politicize and guilt trip everybody into voting for gas tax increases. Last week, Jeremy Gillum, the Speaker of the House, and Dan Douglas said that bridges are going to have to collapse and people are going to have to die before Arkansans start treating their road situation seriously. I mean, what kind of fear-mongering Democrat tactics are that coming from Republicans? And it's all because they are desperate for revenue. They're desperate for flexibility, I guess, Joe. I think you're really onto something here. That flexibility really just means more money. Continue.
These are the reforms we want to put into place.
Governor, House Republicans would offer you more flexibility, as you say, but they would also cut some of the Medicaid funding you get from the government, and it seems they are increasing uncertainty. Insurers need to set their rates for the next year,
PBS,
and they aren't sure if they're going to get the subsidies that the President and Congress control. What does that uncertainty feel like, and are you worried about funding cuts?
Yeah, what does it feel like?
Yes, that's one of the big faults of the House bill is that is a cost shift to the states.
To the left of Paul Ryan, ladies and gentlemen.
More of the cost to maintain the same level of coverage. We don't need that cost shift to the states. We need to continue a good federal-state partnership. So I'm looking to the
you guys keep
Senate to
money.
rewrite that portion of it. So the flexibility is good, but you cannot accompany that with a massive cost shift to the states that would leave more and more uninsured because the states cannot absorb that kind of a burden.
Stop. What did he just say? He says, he basically says it's going to cause people to be uninsured. But people who are young, able to work adults with no children. Again, that is the same philosophy of Barack Obama.
Okay, so there's two big things in here that we've talked about before. One is the one he just said that we stopped the audio for, was absorbing the money. That's not a conservative thing, apparently. The second thing, remember our whiteboard?
We can't absorb it. That's a good. See, Asa is actually really consistently liberal. He is approaching this from a set of principles. They're just progressive liberal ones.
Yeah. Okay. So remember our whiteboard the other week?
Raise. It was cut, shift, or raise.
Yeah. Okay. He says. The very first thing he says after the question is, yes, that's one of the big faults of the House bill is that it's a cost shift to the states. He doesn't want a shift. He wants a raise. He wants a raise to the states. He doesn't want a cost shift because a cost shift is revenue neutral, which is one of the things he always hits on is revenue neutral. But in this case, he doesn't want a shift. He sure as heck doesn't want a cut. He wants a raise.
We know he doesn't want to cut because because people will lose their insurance. Well, what about the 7 million people that lost their insurance when Obamacare came into effect?
And then had to get
Obamacare and pay twice as much again. It's like Asa thinks. I promise you, he cares more about able-to-work adults who are choosing not to work getting something for free than he does. Back to this report from the top of the hour. Since 2013, our premiums are up 128%. It's like he cares more about. Does he think we should all have to pay higher premiums for this? And he's got to see. Surely Asa could at least agree that this is a redistribution of wealth scheme. That's what it was. To make us all pay more, to make hard-working Arkansas small business owners, hard-working Arkansans who are working for small business pay more for their health insurance so that people who don't work can get it for free.
Also,
for free.
Question: are government workers like the governors? Are they on Obamacare, or do they have their own insurance?
I don't believe so. They're gonna. Asa Hutchinson doesn't have any problem buying his insurance,
and this is why they don't understand the burden that is put on.
Thank you,
other people,
Joe,
because they don't have it.
And at the beginning of this, at the very beginning of this segment, the reporter she actually asks him, "Well, let's go to somebody who's closest to this." Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. He's not closest to this. He's not feeling the burden. It's unbelievable. Very good points, Joe. Anyway, flexibility really means more money, to summarize. And he is hoping that the Republican repeal and replace out of the House does not pass. He'll say it's a good start, but he does not want the cost shift to go from 90-10 to 70-30, which traditional Medicaid is. We should be prioritizing people who are on traditional Medicaid, those who truly cannot take care of themselves, instead of trying to raise our taxes, gas tax, internet tax, just so we can pay for our share and our portion. 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
This is Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. The Republican Party of Arkansas has something called a platform, and it's basically what they believe. Things like lower taxes, right to own and bear arms, encouraging individual responsibility and initiative. Yet in this legislative session, we see Republicans fighting against the right to own and bear arms by amending over and over the campus carry bill. We see instead of lowering taxes and fees being raised 8 different times. We see the attack against individual responsibility and initiative by continuing to embrace Obamacare Medicaid expansion called Arkansas Works. So what we need is not conservatives or not Republicans, because those names don't seem to mean anything anymore. We need platform Republicans. This is Donnie Copeland for Common Sense and Liberty.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Flexibility is an important part of it to be able to manage it. 2 points. Under Obamacare, they underestimated the number that was going to go on Medicaid. Too many went on Medicaid. They overestimated those that would go on the exchange, and there were too few on the exchange. We want to reverse that. And under Arkansas's plan, you're going to restrict those that are on the Medicaid portion of it, shift more to the exchange, and that's the original design that makes it more cost-effective for the states.
I see. Governor Asa Hutchinson, Republican of Arkansas, thank you so much for joining us.
The question is, do you believe that the government busybodies who create these problems to begin with can then come using the same people? And when I say same people, I'm like, what's the difference between Barack Obama and Cindy Gillespie? Cindy Gillespie helped create Romney Care. Romney Care was based on Obamacare. It's the same people. It's the same elitist mentality who created the mess, and now the same people who never lose credibility. We never say we're done with your ideas because they don't work. We just keep it. Do you think it's going to work? I don't think it's going to work because it hasn't worked so far. I mean, that's the question. The same thing has happened here in Arkansas. President pro temp of the Senate, Jonathan Dismang, is still in leadership after he promised in 2013 as a supporter of Obamacare Medicaid expansion that we were going to have all these fantastic verification systems, and we were going to save, it was going to save money, it was going to lower premiums. I mean, all of these promises. You can go back one day I went back and retweeted all of Charlie Collins' promises. You remember that? All the things he said. Well, no, I guess I was retweeting all the times he said taxed enough already. Yeah, that's what it was. So anyway, I stand corrected on that. But I mean, he's not the only one. I mean, there are promises. There are tweets out there. You would have thought these guys were the next Ronald Reagan. You know, they tried to make it out that this was so conservative, and it was all lies. Lies. To get from one crisis to the next. And now, folks, Arkansas is in a budget crisis. We don't have money for our roads. Next, we won't have money for education, because if we the people say we're taxed enough already and we don't want it, we've already given you money to fund our roads, and if we say that, well, then they'll come back and say we need money for education. We have an education crisis. And then if we reject giving them more money on the basis of education and for the kids, they'll say, well, we got a law enforcement crisis. We're going to have to fire law enforcement. And they'll never admit it was because they grew government and promised to shrink it later and failed us. We have one more hour coming your way next. Thanks for listening. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Yes, I hear you. It is a concern. We do need to think about cutting spending as well. That's got to be part of it. I hope to be one, and I know there are others that will be advocating for also cutting spending. I've been told by folks, well, you can't cut taxes unless you're willing to say where you're going to cut spending. I kind of have the philosophy of, well, don't raise any tax unless you tell me directly how you're going to cut taxes somewhere else. So, or with income taxes. It's a fair concern, but if this is going to work, you're right. We have to be intentional about not shifting things around. We have to think about cutting spending too. I think it's realistic to expect cuts in spending. I mean, we heard literally our Representative Gene, when he was talking about the budget, specifically at the well, say we can't continue with this budget. It's not sustainable without raising taxes. So right then and there, you have someone who pays attention to this, to all the details, and they're saying you have to raise taxes. Well, we could also figure out ways to stretch the budget in different areas or cut spending. And I do believe there are those that will be on that task force that will be advocating for that.
Yeah, and I certainly hope so. So next question on this. Let's talk about this, the quest for more revenue from the taxpayers. That seemed to be, whether we call it a fee or whether we call it a tax or whether we say, you already owe this, whatever it is. I've got a graph I'm looking at, and it says that in the Arkansas 91st General Assembly, there were $380 million a year of either proposed or past tax increases. So you got like the tire taxes, the digital products tax, which you already mentioned, the soda and candy tax. But then we get into the ones, the internet sales tax and the gas tax, which, I mean, those are $150 million, $217 million. Those are dead for now because we played defense on that, and I think that's a good thing. But then we've got in the paper, we've got quotes from, folks saying, hey, we may try to bring this back up. What are your thoughts on all this quest for revenue this session?
My thoughts on a quest for revenue is, we kind of touched on earlier, why wouldn't we have a quest for cuts in spending first before we talk about a quest for revenue? I can't speak to what was proposed. I can only speak to what was passed. If anything, that's what I meant in the beginning by we can measure success by what we didn't pass, right? So if it was proposed, and you brought it up, the SB 140, I think an alternative title for that is a regressive tax on Arkansas residents, the majority of which will be paid for by Arkansans under the age of 45. And what I mean by that, yes, everyone's buying online, but it's obvious to see from a data standpoint, it's millennials that are spending dollars online.
Yeah.
Now, it's probably fair to say that all sales taxes are regressive, which probably brings me to my point of I would probably even vote for it if I knew for a fact it was going to be reserved for income tax reduction. But, of course, that wasn't part of it. So, I can't speak to why legislators feel like they need to propose, as you put it, the quest for the revenue here and there. But I was excited to see some of the votes that those supposed tax increases or those quests for revenues.
Yeah.
We voted against them.
What about we are running out of time, and I really appreciate it. We're talking with State Representative Austin McCollum. His vote. I mean, I just want to say, Austin, your voting record was spectacular. It really, it truly is. Can you talk just a little bit about the process? I mean, did you learn anything, from the process? Maybe the process that we don't see in the headlines, but you guys do in your deliberations.
Yeah, it's a good question, and thank you for being so kind and making that comment about my voting record. That's very kind of you. Maybe it's the process that folks don't see. Probably the people don't spend as much time paying attention to committee meetings and where a lot of these things are talked about and a lot of these issues are discussed. It seems to me that once a bill reaches the floor, a lot of folks have made up their mind. So there are a lot of conversations probably that folks don't know about unless you're in the House that go on during the committee meetings. And I guess I should say what I'm talking about during committee meetings, maybe even during the same time, but not at the table in questions, just side-to-side conversations or the discussions that are happening. I'm trying to think of how I can best answer your question.
I understand. Yeah, the committee process is. It's really where bills go to live or die, and so much of it. Did you find any?
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing. And it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that process. One of the ways you can do that, call us, text us 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. I'm going to start here. I'm going to start where I want to read this one more time to you, okay? And I read it last hour, but I'm going to do it one more time. Just want to take a moment to talk about where we are, what's happened, okay, and what matters going forward in Arkansas and limited government. Okay? Story of a lawyer who had a wife and 12 children, needed to move because his rental agreement was terminated by the owner who wanted to reoccupy the home. He was having a lot of difficulty finding a new house. When he said he had 12 children, no one would rent a home to him because they felt that the children would destroy the place. He couldn't say he had no children because he couldn't lie. We all know lawyers cannot and do not lie. So he sent his wife for a walk to the cemetery with 11 of their kids, and he took the remaining one child with him to see rental homes with their real estate agent. He loved one of the homes and the price was right. The agent asked, "How many children do you have?" He answered, 12. The agent asked, "Where are the others?" The lawyer, with his best courtroom sad look, answered, "They're in the cemetery with their mother." Moral, it's not necessary to lie. One only has to choose the right words, and don't forget, most politicians are unfortunately lawyers. Now, I don't think that's the moral of the story. That's what's written down here. It's not necessary to lie. I think most of us were raised, as I said last hour, to believe that that is a lie, that that actually is wrong, morally wrong, black and white, morally wrong. Okay? So based on that, we could talk about where we are. What has just happened? Well, if you know the facts of what happened at the Capitol in Little Rock from January until now, if you know that, then you understand a few things. And I would submit to you that what just happened was that the leadership has been exposed as not governing conservatively. That's an easy thing to say. They have been exposed the negative consequences, the negative results, the negative actions are a direct response, it's a direct correlation between their leadership. You won't find that in the mainstream press. You'll find liberal John Brummett actually praising Asa. And if you know that John Brummett's a progressive liberal and he's endorsing Asa's reelection, then a critical thinking person would say that's very strange if we're to believe the Republican Party establishment narrative that everything's great and we're governing just the way we told you we were. So that's what's just happened, is that entire idea has been completely exposed because they tried to raise your taxes multiple times and succeeded some, and then the governor had to cut spending, and he had the boldness to say it's not a spending problem, it's a revenue problem. That is what just happened. It has all been exposed for those who want to see, for those who don't want to just worship a party because you know your guy's in power. You don't just want to worship the R next to somebody's name who happens to be governor. It is all out there for people to see who want to see it, who are not afraid their whole world's not going to collapse if they admit that these people in power are deceiving them. That's what's just happened. Basically, that politicians turn from what they get elected on and what they do in office. We've seen that. And again, it is a direct result of their failure of leadership that they don't want to admit, obviously. But that's why they're coming to us for more taxes. That's why they raised our taxes. That's why they attempted to raise their taxes, and that's why they had to cut money from the budget, because things are not good. So the next question is, what do we all do next? Actually, it's a different question, because we could think of a lot of things to do next as a movement. The question after that would be, what is worth doing? What is worth your time, your effort, your energy to try to beat back and expose these guys for more people to realize what's going on? It took the Republican Party a long time to convince people that the Democrat Party was enabling policies they disagreed with here in Arkansas. It took it a lot longer than we should, and we've got to hope and pray that it doesn't take that long for us to convince the people of Arkansas that the leadership of the Republican Party has failed them, is continuing to fail them, is failing them right now on a daily basis with their excuses for why limited government is not the answer, shrouded in fake conservatism. What's worth doing? Well, a couple of years ago, I got to go to my first Calvin Coolidge Awards put on by Conduit for Action. It was a really cool event where what had happened is that Conduit for Action puts out their Coolidge Report, which that was in 2015. Now it's 2017 after a legislative session. So the Conduit for Action Coolidge Report is due out really any day now. And this Coolidge Report, based on, President Calvin Coolidge, amazing. You want to talk about a limited government guy. Some amazing quotes by Calvin Coolidge about his view of government. He's a great president. Great president. Asa Hutchinson and these Republicans that are in leadership, they would disagree with 95% of his philosophy in government. Completely disagree with it. What the Coolidge Report is a scorecard. It's a scorecard of the issues that Conduit for Action cares about. Does it grow government? Does it increase dependency on government? Does it spend money we don't have? Conduit for Action has by far the best scoring system of anybody in Arkansas. Of any scorecard you see, Conduit for Action, their scorecard will be the things that directly impact freedom. Economic freedom, by the way, is the prerequisite for all other forms of freedom. The acquisition of private property is how all economic freedom comes from that. I would even go a step further. I would say Conduit for Action's scoring method is the top in the country when you actually because you know what? Some people get freedom more than others. And so that's coming out is a scorecard, and we're going to be able to see where legislators really stack up. And I have a prediction. And it's pretty simple. The ones who are in leadership are going to be at the bottom of this list for the most part. And I don't know. I haven't been given any kind of. I have no idea who ranks where. What's weighted more than something else. I have no idea about any of that. We're going to see a pattern here. So, and this scorecard is going to be immense. It's going to be comprehensive. It's going to be good. And so what do you do from there? What is worth doing? What is worth not doing? And I think we can answer what's worth not doing. It's supporting any of these guys who are at the bottom of this scorecard, who are the worst, who claim to be Republicans. It's supporting those guys. Needs to not be a thought in your mind. The only true choice that we have where we can debate the issues that we talk about on this program are in elections called primaries, where the people in the Republican Party, in the limited government movement, get to make a decision about which one is more conservative. And I say that knowing that both candidates will claim they're conservative and more conservative than the other. There's nobody that's winning a Republican primary in Arkansas by claiming that they're more liberal than the guy they're running against. So then it's about, okay, well, what was this person who's the incumbent? What did they vote? Where do they rank in the Coolidge Report? These are the pieces of legislation that were scored. This is where you rank. And it's going to be very clear, in my opinion. My prediction is it's going to be very clear where people rank. And the effects that the bills that they voted for, the effects that it has on us. You know, and there are bills that affect our freedom more than others. And both of the bills could be bad bills. but some have far lasting and reaching effects on our long-term freedom and liberty, the growth of government, the shrinkage of government. You get the picture. Primaries are early next year. And, ladies and gentlemen, that's the time where people get to make informed decisions about who gets it, who's in the club, who's along for the ride, who's there to be liked versus who's there to call a spade, who's in it for themselves, who's not. Anyway, phone number, if you want to call or text me today, 870-275-9799. All of these guys who have been asking for more of your taxpayer money or more of your hard-earned money, and they want to take in the form of taxes. I want you to realize something, and this is now something that needs to be said. We need to condense this down to a slogan. And I tried to yesterday on the program, I was talking about this the entire time. We already give you money to do these things. Remember that? It spends it. Yeah. I mean, the whiteboard would be good. But but how do we get this? I don't know if we make a T-shirt or what. We already give you money to do these things that you're now saying you want to raise your taxes to do. We already give you money for that. So why do you want more and more and more and more of it, whether it's on the local level, local sales tax, local property taxes, all the way down to the state house, all the way to the federal government? Why? They act like we're not already giving you money to do these things that you said the last time. 2 years ago, you said, well, we're going to raise your taxes, and then we'll have the money to do these things. You're still getting that money because most of the time, taxes don't have sunset clauses. Tax increases don't have sunset clauses. Tax cuts will have sunset clauses. We got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Back in a moment.
Don't wait until it's too late to recover what belongs to you. At Triple R Recovery, service is our specialty. We offer recovery of ATVs, boats, vehicles, and personal possessions. If you are in need of our services and want back what is rightfully yours, give us a call for 24/7 assistance at 1-866-593-7457. That's 1-866-593-7457. Or email us at triplrrecovery@gmail.com.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com.
The Northeast Arkansas Real Estate School offers continuing education classes for your local boards of realtors, local offices, and will offer discounts for large groups. They'll come to you, set up shop, and teach anywhere in Arkansas, and as always, making learning fun and motivating. The Northeast Arkansas Real Estate School is licensed by the Arkansas Real Estate Commission and must adhere to their rules and regulations. Give them a call today at 870-336-4155. That's 870-336-4155. Or find out about class times and schedules at neaprofessionalschools.com. That's neaprofessionalschools.com. Mention the Paul Harrell program and receive 10% off.
This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. Government is not the author or source of our rights, and you don't make America great again by giving one man in Washington all the power. You make America great again by recovering a constitutional republic where Washington is populated by people who are servant leaders who want to return power to the people and communities. Because what makes America great again in this country are its Rotary clubs, small businesses, churches, schools, fire departments, and little leagues across this land. God bless the people who hear this truth. Senator Ben said.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, 870-275-9799. Editorial, Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette. More shoes to drop in the public corruption trial. And this has to do with... obviously, John Woods. I just think, we do have other people now anticipating what federal prosecutors did not deny when John Woods' attorney asked for a continuance to December 4th. And that's a good, that's just basically saying there's going to be more indictments coming down, which is certainly interesting. This was the Northwest Arkansas Gazette editorial. So now they're expecting more shoes to drop, just to give you a little update on that. Also, listen to this. We didn't cover this. I meant to cover this last week, but and I have kept this this article from the 25th, okay, as we're on the last day of the month of May. I feel like I'll squeeze it in here. New funds available to the Delta region, $460,000 on tap for developing community art and culture. Well, maybe we did cover this. Did we? I think we covered this, actually. This $460,000 applicants, and it has to do with economic development in the arts, that they're going to offer workshops, expertise to community leaders interested in obtaining funding. National partners in the program include National Endowment for the Arts, Art Place America, the Rural Policy Research Institute, the National Association of Counties, and among others, the National Association of Development Organizations. $460,000. Keeps going. Quote, we really see this as another tool in their kit when they're thinking about industrial recruitment. Federal co-chairman Chris Massengill of the Delta Regional Authority. We know the strategy works, and we want our local leaders and community developers to engage more with bringing that into their strategy. So this idea is to take this taxpayer money and give it to communities where there are artists, because they're is part of an economic development project. Artists are the one asset that is already in every community, according to Jamie Bennett, the executive director for Art Place America, a coalition of national groups that focus on using arts and culture to economically strengthen rural communities. So specifically about rural communities. People are going to get mad at me about this. So, I mean, they are. But the only thing I can tell you is priorities to me just seem to be, out of whack. That's all. And I've talked about this. A lot of people have asked me before, hey, why are people in the arts more liberal? Why are they so liberal all the time? But I saw this. One of the great playwrights who's a conservative, who came in as a conservative recently. His name is David Mamet. Great playwright of our generation. Before Andrew Breitbart passed away, by the way, David Mamet and he, they met a few times, I believe. And people are upset now because David Mamet will not let theater directors who are doing his plays have talkbacks afterwards because, and this is my opinion, because they are so distorting his work and trying to twist it to the liberal progressive agenda that David Mamet is now saying you can't have a talkback after you do one of my plays unless it's like 8 hours afterwards, or you can't do a show. He's also preventing, David Mamet is now preventing people from trying to ascribe making characters with gender neutral. That's a whole thing. So why are people in the arts liberal? And I will tell you, I think it's because they are disconnected for the privilege of being able to practice art, especially being able to practice art and make a living at it. Because if it wasn't for the engineers and the farmers and other people, there would be no market for people to want to pay money to entertain themselves. Austin McCollum, I just want to say, Austin, your voting record was spectacular. It truly is. Can you talk just a little bit about the process? Did you learn anything, from the process? Maybe the process that we don't see in the headlines, but you guys do in your deliberations.
Yeah, it's a good question, and thank you for being so kind and making that comment about my voting record. That's very kind of you. Maybe it's the process that folks don't see. Probably the people don't spend as much time paying attention to committee meetings and where a lot of these things are talked about and a lot of these issues are discussed. It seems to me that once a bill reaches the floor, a lot of folks have made up their mind. So there are a lot of conversations probably that folks don't know about unless you're in the House that go on during the committee meetings. And I guess I should say when I'm talking about during committee meetings, maybe even during the same time, but not at the table in questions, just side-to-side conversations or the discussions that are happening. I'm trying to think of how I can best answer your question.
I understand. The committee process is, it's really where, bills go to live or die. And, so much of it. Did you find any, a lot of times you've got a bureaucrat telling you what a bill's going to do, or you have a colleague telling you what a bill's going to do. If you're not on that particular committee, how do you know who to trust down there as a freshman?
That's a fair question. I wouldn't say that I don't trust anyone. Maybe this just comes from my experience, my outside of legislating, being in the retail environment, and when people are saying, "Hey, they're trying to sell you something," it's a trust but verify type of deal. You get all this data, and it's not that they're lying. It's just you know their biases, you know their prejudices, and you know that they're trying to give you data that's leading you down the path that they want you to go down. So it's your job as a legislator to recognize their perspective and think about all of the data, not just like the tunnel that they're pointing you down. You really have to be careful. As far as the trust issue, I think you just develop that over time. And I just observed. I tried to listen a lot, and I tried to, as much as I could, notice what someone says. But I also know the loudest indicator a lot of times of what someone will do is what they've done in the past. So I try to study up on how they've represented themselves in the past and some of the stuff they've said in the past.
State Representative Austin McCollum, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for giving us some time, and I appreciate the work that you did down there this session.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do and for speaking up for liberty and being the liberty machine that you are. Appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks, Austin. Folks, we got to go to break. It is Johnny Cash Friday and Good Friday edition of that. Back in just a moment.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, welcome back. 870-275-9799. That's the telephone number. Me and Joe were just having an interesting conversation just based off of my comments on the arts just a second ago. I wasn't trying to offend anybody. I really want to get to the bottom of folks who are predisposed to thinking one way. Now, Joe, you're still in college. Well, you're out of college now, but whatever. You're very fresh off of the whole college thing, and you would agree there's among your peer group, among millennials, there's a lot of liberalism, a lot of progressivism, right?
Absolutely. Like, the problem with the millennial mindset, for the most part, is that we aren't really taught to critically think when it comes to, in high school. So a lot of things are already emotion based because we're already so injected with hormones during puberty, during our adolescence, that everything at that point is already emotion based. So why not? Why wouldn't that carry over into our political ideology? I
listened to a sermon or I guess a master class by theologian R.C. Sproul yesterday, and one of the things he said, it was his Renewing Your Mind segment, and one of the things he talked about is most people, I don't know if the statistic was 90%, but it was an overwhelming majority of college freshmen, even those who consider themselves to be religious, that go into college believing that truth is relative. And talked about how the lack of critical thought, if you, I think there's a correlation. If you go into thinking truth is relative, then you are actually being discouraged to think critically, because thinking critically is something you do when you're trying to distinguish what is truth, meaning black and white truth, and what is a lie. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, let's just take the idea of critically thinking and emotion-based decision making. Let's take both of those into just like the typical buying situation. Like someone buying an object. Someone who's more of an emotion-based driven buyer, they're going to buy things on a whim just for no reason. Oh, this is really cool. I like this. The person who's critically based, I don't necessarily have the finances for it just yet. Let me save up for it. Mm-hmm. And very much, a lot of the people in the millennial generation are about emotion-based anything, because I know so many people who are impulse buyers that are in our generation because the fact that they're like, oh, this is so cool, I want this right now.
Right, yeah.
And it also goes into instant
we don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah, instant gratification. There's no, we don't have to save for anything anymore, it seems like. As kids, for most of my generation, people would just get what they want because, not saying the adults just gave them what they want, but it was that way.
Well, you got a participation trophy,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm loosely a part of that generation. I remember getting a trophy just because.
Yeah, but it
didn't mean anything to me, by the way. Once I got it, I was like, oh, okay, I don't need this anymore.
But an emotion-based way of thinking compared to a critical way of thinking, they're so opposite of each other.
Well, and I think when you think that all truth is relative, it is kind of based on emotion, because the concept there is, so I agree with you, the concept there would be, well, you have to walk in some, it's not, there's no such thing as truth. It's all relative, because I'm not walking in this person's shoes, and I don't really know how they feel, and I don't know what they've been through.
Yeah, and with critical thinking, it can, to be honest, when it comes to critical thinking, there are some decisions that you may not like to make, but they need to be made with critical thinking. But within
we all do. You're kind of getting borderline logic there, and this is what Sproul was saying. We all think logically every single day. We really do. But then we will immediately deny it when we have to admit something that we don't want to admit.
Yeah, when if there's something that comes out that I really would like to have, but I look at how much money I have, I'm like, can't really afford right now. I have bills coming up. Well, I have to wait on it.
Yeah,
I can't get it
exactly.
Just then. But so it's a decision that I don't want to have to make because I really want whatever it is. but I have to make the decision of not doing it. Whereas some people would just go, fine anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, so instinctively, and Sproul uses that same similar argument, but he uses it in terms of like everyone, you may say truth is relative, but we all are going to agree that, if you pull out in front of the semi, you're not going to do that. You're going to make a logical decision and say, I can't just say, well, the semi's not really there. The semi's going to flatten me, it's going to kill me. So people make these, but then,
that gets into a whole different point.
It's a they will be contradictory when they can, because they want to be.
Okay, real quick, you were talking about the idea of pulling out in front of a semi. You can't really just say, "Oh, the semi's not there. I'm just going to move my car." That really gets into a different type of philosophy. Now we're getting to something whole.
Yeah. Well, this is what his whole one of my lecture was on.
Whenever my friends freshman year, they were thinking about taking Intro to Philosophy. One of the stories I heard from other philosophy classes from other universities is the final for one of them was the teacher walked in, or they had their papers in front of them. Teacher walked in, put a chair on the desk and said, "Tell me this chair, or explain why this chair doesn't exist." And then someone wrote on the paper and turned it in within like 10 seconds. It goes, "What chair?"
Oh, man.
And
he passed?
Apparently.
Oh,
and
my
then there was
goodness.
another one.
That's so funny because it's just like the sermon, except the opposite.
Exactly. But then there was another one that says, "What is courage?" And then someone put in, "This is courage," and turned theirs in. Like, this is a different, these were different stories that I've heard. But still, like, it's the same, like similar idea. This different, it's a way of thinking that doesn't make any sense. Like,
it's a way of thinking that is really, it's promoting chaos, denying order, and essentially making us our own gods.
Exactly.
I mean,
you're denying what is truth for what is it's in a flexible sense what
we
can
want.
be considered truth.
We want to decide what things are.
Again, it's a flexible sense of what is truth.
Yeah.
It's our truth. It's
so
my truth.
You would say, I mean, and you went to A-State, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you would say, even in a Southern university, it's still just a ton of a lack of critical thought, skewing towards socialism.
I didn't spend a lot of time in the arts, what you'd consider the arts. I had to have some classes in there, but for the most part, I spent a lot of time in the business department. And there's quite a large number of conservative individuals in the business department. But for my time in the liberal side of things, when I had to take like fine arts visual or
the fine arts,
the fine arts and stuff like that, I did get a little taste of liberalism, and it's interesting because I took fine arts visual and I took fine arts visual, and it very was much based on everyone had their own likes and dislikes when it came to art, but most of us kind of agreed on modern art was really bad. We didn't like modern art.
Now, why? You mean like when you say modern art, what do you mean? Like, hey, I'm going to take a bucket of paint and just throw it on a piece of painting and sell it for $5,000?
Essentially, yes.
I can't stand that.
Something to the eye. If you evaluate art just based off of how it looks, bring nothing else into it, modern art doesn't look that good. I went back and I started because we had to find
like a painting of a sunset actually looks good.
Yeah,
like that's a thing.
One of the things we had to do was we had to create a portfolio of artwork that we liked, and I was very much into like Monet, who was like impressionist. So it looks like if a breeze rolled by, the picture would just take off and start moving. So it's really cool stuff like that I enjoyed. But modern art, there was a guy. His name was Duchamp. He submitted a piece of artwork called The Fountain. For those who are watching, air quotes. All he did was he submitted a urinal upside down with a fake name on it to an art gallery, and everyone loved it. Modern art, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and I think that reflects
that has a meaning, but it's not what you want it to mean. It's what you think everyone else will have.
Yeah, it's just like there's no merit. In my opinion, there's absolutely no merit to that. As far as what I consider to be art or talent. That's the kind of stuff that actually I think it reflects. I think you can chart it. Francis Schaeffer would say you can chart the degradation of a society's art throughout, with what their culture is, the values of their culture, and what the art represents. Yeah. For example, if you go back into the Roman days, the early Roman days, before their society was starting to crumble apart, you find old coins, old currency, and the picture of Caesar, right, is very intricate, and it's merit-based. It's a very intricate, and it's very detailed. It's very, very detailed. Versus a coin right before the fall of Rome,
it's kind of shoddy.
It's shoddy. It's like, oh yeah, you just put some guy's face on there, and you know so the idea behind that is your art reflects the health of your and I would say the true merit of the art, the talent that it requires to do something reflects the health of society, or it's one indicator.
Well, when it comes to the art, I think the only in modern what's considered modern art, I think the only artist that I think actually his artwork has some sort of merit to it is Andy Warhol, considering he was trying to make a statement with his art that everything in our society is manufactured. So one of his most famous paintings is a painting of a tomato soup can.
Yeah.
And
at least it's a painting of something.
Yeah, and he mass produced it. So he created the same piece of artwork over and over again, and eventually it became prints where you could just like print yeah, stuff like that. So it was a statement. It was more of a statement and less of, oh, what does this mean to you?
Look, hey,
and I kind of thought that was cool.
I'm a figurative guy. I mean, if I'm going to like a piece of art, I want it to be a picture of something, you know, not just. But back to my larger point, because this is what we talked about during the break. I think people who are in the fine arts, they skew to the left because it's all about self-interest for them. I think socialism and being taken care of by the government so you can pursue your art is a very attractive thing. If you are all about your art, and you're all about, I just want to make music, or I just want to paint a picture, or I just want to dance on stage, or whatever.
Create YouTube videos.
Yeah, or and there's a lot of leftists out there who are, doing YouTube shows now. It just makes perfect sense. Because if you look at, for example, let's just take acting for a second. You are either insanely wealthy because you're a movie star celebrity, or you are starving
because you can't find a job.
Because you can't find a job and your waiting tables, that sort of, and because of the internet, there now is kind of more, but that's a free market advantage. There is now more of a middle ground where you can kind of eke out a living.
Yeah,
there's more opportunities there for sure.
Yeah, when Vine was out before it got taken down, there was a guy. I'm trying to remember his name. I can't remember his name. Anyways, he was on Vine and he would sing music. He would just sing stuff, and he was a really good singer. And a record label saw it, and someone had said, "Hey, this guy's pretty good." Well, they brought him into the studio, and now he's a really big hit. I forget his name, but he did really successful. It's a launching ground. The internet is a launching point for a lot of people.
Exactly. But I mean, so the point is though, if you were to tell somebody who's just about their art, hey, look, the government will take care of you, and you'll just be able to do your art. That's it. It's very appealing. For people who that's all they want to do the rest of their life, and they don't want to have to worry about a market. They don't want to have to worry about whether or not people like it or going to consume it or going to buy it. They just want to be taken care of. So it's a very appealing thing. Art, being in the arts is an interesting thing. It actually depends on the market. I would submit that if all artists got to just make a modest middle class income and be taken care of, I think art would actually get worse. I really do. That may be at odds with a lot of people, but I think it would, because I think it actually needs the market. It actually needs to be a meritocracy. If sometimes you need to be told, hey, you need to give up on singing because you're terrible at it.
I don't think art would get worse. I think it would get better.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
The reason why wait, hold on. Maybe I'm missing something here. Are you talking about if the government stopped paying for everything?
No, I mean they already are. I'm talking about if the government came in and started a new government program.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying?
I misunderstood.
It would get worse, because I think you'd have
I agree with that
people
statement.
who you get that one guy on The Voice or America's Got Talent or whatever it used to be. What was it? American Idol. Was that it?
Shebang.
And it's like, my mom has always told me my whole life that I'm an amazing singer. And it's like, well, your mom just couldn't let you down. Your mom was a bad mommy, because you have no business devoting any more of your time to something that you're no good at.
Yeah. There was definitely a miscommunication there.
Yeah, and that happened many times, and unfortunately, it was probably some of the highest rated shows.
Between us.
Oh, between us, yeah.
Because I thought you were talking about if the government stopped providing for things like this,
yes,
then art would get better. I think art would get drastically better.
Yeah,
because they would actually have to produce
but it would be
good
harder,
quality art to survive.
And there's some, you have academia to pursue these things, and as well, and of course you're paying for that though, right? You go in paying to be taught. the arts. So,
Also,
but I just think that's the reason to me. Number one is self-interest. That is why so many people who are in the fine arts go to the left, because I do believe guaranteed income, regardless of merit, it can be appealing to somebody who just wants to write music all day.
Also, you know what's something that's really bad about the painting art world? Your stuff is worth more when you're dead. Like, no lie, Van Gogh, for instance, when he first started painting, he was nobody. No one liked his artwork. No one did. When he died, when he had passed away,
then
everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, his artwork is phenomenal." And his artwork just blew up.
Yeah, that is unfortunate when that happens. Somebody has said many times that there's a ton of people who were genius that died, alone and poor, and it wasn't until after they're gone that people take their work and actually.
Unfortunately, Van Gogh died poor, alone, in -1 ear.
Not deaf, though.
No, he wasn't deaf. He just cut his own ear off.
He just doesn't have the ear. Yeah. All right, folks. The phone number, you can call me or text me, 870-275-9799. It's 870-275-9799. Let's see here. Oh, this is interesting. Joe from Fulton County, writing in, greetings, Paul. If Arkansans weren't heavy in debt, busy making brick for Pharaoh, we could declare a statewide strike. Things would change fast. Special session? ? Can we dream? Cheers. Joe in Fulton County, listening on Mountain Talk 97.1. Joe, we appreciate you listening and your participation, as well as everybody else who listens and participates. The phone number again, 870-275-9799. We're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine will be back in just a moment.
Order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not in agreement that your board owes us tribute.
Sir, maybe we could ask and see if there's a bureaucrat in the house.
Ah, yes. Yes, that would shed some light on things. A bureaucrat. Yeah, in the name of public safety, is there a bureaucrat in the house? We need someone to resuscitate and confirm our authority as the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards.
Here.
Ah, yes. Oh, good. Come to the end of the table in the name of public safety and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, I am despot ringleader, the head of the bureau governing all state bureaus, and it is my testimony the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards does have the authority to demand tribute in this situation and will provide in exchange a license to say they can continue to operate in the name of public safety.
It's hard to argue when the public safety is put at risk. Very well. We will consider Mrs. Ringleader's testimony as truth, and we will pay tribute in the name of public safety, of course.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
And we're back. All right, welcome back. So finishing up the show today, Kathy Griffin, with her severed Donald Trump head, mock head. Did you hear that his son, Donald Trump's son, Barron, thought that it was real for a moment? When he's 11 years old, according to reports, he cried out "mommy" when he saw the photo on TV as CNN or somebody was reporting on it. He actually thought something was really wrong. Can you imagine? I mean, that's just absolutely awful. CNN has now cut ties with Kathy Griffin, as she normally would be the co-anchor next to Anderson Cooper during the New Year's Eve ceremonies. So that's happened. Kathy Griffin has issued an apology. There are people on the left and the right both condemning this. Obviously, it's awful. It's disgusting.
Did she think that this would be a good idea?
Look, yes.
This is the same question I asked with McDonald's the other week. Did she honestly think this was a good idea?
I don't remember the McDonald reference.
It was the McDonald's commercial about the dead dad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did she honestly think
this is taking it up a notch, though. This is premeditated.
This might trump Pepsi's ordeal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so let's compare two situations. So last week, it was Montana, Greg Giaforte, or how do you say this guy's name? Giaforte. All right, so Montana, their lone congressman, special election, the Republican against the Democrat. The Republican, who goes on to win, reportedly body slams a reporter for asking him a question in a way he didn't like, or pestering him or whatever. And the media tries to use that to appropriate that to all Republicans believe in violence, and this is just now Donald Trump's America, body slamming reporters, rah. And they're like, it starts with him calling us fake news, and it ends with people getting body slammed. Oh, the humanity. All right, so compare that with Kathy Griffin essentially wanting to kill Donald Trump, or whatever you want to say. She did that for art, by the way. Excuse to the left, holding a severed head or fake head of Donald Trump. And I guess, are we supposed to do the same thing? Are we supposed to say, well, all liberals want to kill the president? Now, the answer to that is no.
Didn't she do this on Memorial Day?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. And, of course, with ISIS chopping everybody's heads off. I mean, here's the thing. What's worse, Griffin or Giaforte? Griffin is way worse.
Oh, by far and away.
Because she premeditated and thought this was a good idea versus somebody being provoked. And when I say the word provoked, I don't mean it was the reporter's fault. I'm just saying, it was just like the guy snapped. He didn't go around being like, I can't wait to body slam a reporter and I'm going to do it just like this. It's clearly something that was a reaction to stress, and whether or not it's a good, that is up for debate as to whether or not that's a good quality for somebody to serve in Congress. It's probably not a good quality, but you get the point, right? So it's just a tale of 2 weeks, and nothing really matters to these folks on the left. I mean, they just some people are trying to defend it now. You should see what they did to Obama. What they did to Obama. Can you believe it? They had all these things. They burned Obama in effigy, and now people are all upset about Kathy Griffin doing the Trump thing. And it's like, well, wait a second. Can we just say that both of those are bad? Can we see that both of those are bad? Just like when Game of Thrones used a George W. Bush head in one of their scenes. I believe it was in season 1 of Game of Thrones. At the Ned Stark execution scene, they had heads on pikes, and one of them was like a George W. Bush head. And it was confirmed. It made media reports. So this has happened everywhere, on both sides of the aisle. But it's, some point, you just, whatever. Liberty Machine T-shirts, paulharrell.com. That's Paul, Harrell. And, folks, I want you to know, audio podcast, video archives, it's all there for free for your, so you can distribute it for your listening pleasure. And Mountain Talk 97, you guys have one more hour coming your way next. For the rest of Arkansas, thank you so much for listening. My name is Paul. Be safe.